Good afternoon, everyone. I am Megan with the League of California Cities. Thank you so much for joining our webinar series. Today's webinar is entitled Reopening California Cities Parks and Rec. This series is a part of our COVID-19 series. Coronavirus has rapidly changed the way that cities operate. And in order to meet these moments, the League of California Cities has been producing this series for you to learn from each other. So please ask questions and share what your city is doing with our speakers. Today, we're going to be talking about Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec's department are the hearts of our cities. Our Parks Department hosts summer camps, classes, and much, much more to keep our residents active. Like everything, COVID-19 pandemic has drastically changed how our Parks Department is ran in providing services to our residences. As we slowly start reopening our California cities and we quickly move towards the hot summer, how are your Parks and Rec departments going to resume their activities and services? Today we have, next slide please, we have two great Parks and Rec department directors. We have Tracy Michael from the City of West Sacramento and Janine Parado from the City of Santa Clarita. Next. So we want you to be involved in this webinar. Here's a few housekeeping notes. If you're planning on speaking today, please make sure that your audio is connected. You can check your audio by going to the lower part of your screen and hitting audio settings. Just to let you know, all of your lines have been muted, but you have the capability of showing us your wonderful faces on screen. This webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be hosted on the League's website at cacities.org/coronavirus. You can also see all our past webinars there. Next. So we want you to participate in this webinar. There are two ways to ask questions. One is verbally. So at the lower end of your screen, by the Q&A box, there's a raise your hand option. When you raise your hand at the end of the presentation, I will call on you and you can verbally ask your question, which is the preferred method for our speakers today. But there's also a written option. Select the Q&A button on your toolbar and type in your question. If another participant has the same question as you, you have the opportunity to upvote that question. We will try to get to all your questions, but we are under time constraints, so please be patient with us. Next, please join us in our continuing webinar series. We have the COVID-19 webinar tomorrow if you haven't already registered with our HR directors. We know that many of your staff are moving to go back to the cities, and please listen to our HR directors and from our two cities to see what they're doing. And hopefully you can get some more examples. That is still active, so please register. And now we want to turn the slides over to Tracy. Tracy, if you want to share your screen and unmute yourself. Tracy's sharing her screen. There we go, Tracy. I want to turn over to you after you unmute yourself. Perfect.
I'm unmuted.
We got you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you had a great long weekend. I want to thank the League for the opportunity to participate in this. It's been really fun and just a great opportunity for us all to share information with each other. This is certainly a challenging time for those in the Parks and Recreation field. Our facilities and programming are all about bringing people together and focusing on health and wellness. So to have those two elements working against each other right now is a real struggle for our profession. Things are changing daily. In fact, right before this webinar started, I got some emails about some things with the public health order that might impact what I'm going to be sharing with you today. We keep trying to be flexible and innovative so that we can continue to serve our community. In addition to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're all facing now budget challenges, and those budget constraints are likely to have as much of an effect on how we open our facilities and programming as the pandemic itself. So just a little bit about the city of West Sacramento. We are actually a separate city from the city of Sacramento. Not everybody understands that. We're located in Yolo County and have approximately 55,000 residents. We have a robust parks and recreation system. I've kind of listed some of the highlights of that system. We have multiple, we've got multiple rental facilities, and in addition to our parks and recreation system, we also handle all of the special events, both on the processing and programming side. We have a full-time staff of 41 people, over 200 part-time and seasonal staff, and about a $14 million annual budget. As effective last week, we actually furloughed most of those part-time seasonal staff, and we had them on administrative leave up until that point, just to keep them in case we needed to start reopening programs, not knowing how long closures were going to take place. The furlough status allows those staff to be eligible for unemployment, but it also gives us the flexibility to bring them back quickly if needed, and being able to bypass all of the onboarding and security background checks that can sometimes take a really long time. So the amenities that we have in our parks are important in this discussion, because oftentimes you'll have different status of amenities. You'll have some that are open in a park and some that will remain closed as we transition through the shelter-in-place order. What I thought would be really helpful for this exercise is to, before we talk about how we're reopening, to look at what we've closed, because across the board, there's just been a lot of variation between jurisdictions and park and rec districts about their facility status. So what this slide shows is how a variety of our facilities have changed since mid-March, when the initial shelter-in-place went in order. And then we also tried to anticipate what we think is going to happen in the coming weeks in June and July. So what you can see from the slide is that we never closed any of our parks or trails. We did not close our dog parks. We did not close our skate park, partly because some of these were difficult to close, not practical, but many of them we were able to leave open and not really have any issue with that. Our playgrounds, we left open the first few weeks. We cleaned and disinfected playground equipment a few times a week. Our restrooms track with the playgrounds. So as the playgrounds remained open, so did the restrooms. The cleaning of the restrooms was daily. And then a few weeks in, we pulled back and we closed our playgrounds. We put caution tape around them and signage, same with the restrooms. And those are probably likely to remain closed until the very later phases of reopening. Our basketball courts we left open. We had a really difficult time enforcing social distancing, and so we just took the rims off. And we're actually getting a lot of feedback from neighbors that they like it that way. So it'll be interesting when the time comes to put the rims back on. We're really fortunate in our community to have two large standalone buildings that focus on recreation and arts programming. One of those two facilities is our community center. It contains a city-run licensed preschool facility. We actually have two preschool facilities in the city. One is a licensed childcare facility. The other one operates part-day, school year round. Our licensed facility is in this building, along with our senior center, an art gallery, a cafe, community rooms that we use as rental space for leisure programs and other special events. And then we also are part of a civic center complex. So adjacent to this building is the library and a community college annex location. And so there's typically a lot of activity in this space. And what you'll see is that mid-March, everything closed. We closed our preschool, which tracks with the school district schedule. So as soon as the school district decided to close the schools, we closed our preschools and we immediately went virtual. We offer classes via a private Facebook page for all of our preschool families. And then we also surveyed our city staff to determine if there was need for childcare for our essential staff, as well as the school district surveyed the community. And what we found in our community was that the demand was not very high. So we did not reopen our preschools or any of our after-school programs to serve as childcare for residents or for our own staff. We do have a lot of private childcare facilities in the community that have availability. So we are coordinating with them and posting that information on our website so that everybody in the community has access to that. Our senior center is probably going to be the last component of the building to open, unfortunately. You know, that's the group that's probably feeling most isolated right now, but it's the most sensitive. And what we anticipate to happen coming in June and July is, now that the public health order permits childcare for non-essential workers, we are planning to reopen our preschool in June. And we are not opening any other part of the building except for the community rooms. And I'm going to speak about that a little bit more later in the presentation, but with the new ratio requirements and new protocols for operating a licensed childcare facility, along with just regular day camp types of programs, we don't have space in our preschool component of the building. So we're going to need overflow space. And so we're likely going to use the balance of the community room to help meet those needs so we don't have to turn away any of our families. Okay, our second facility that we have that's a standalone facility is our recreation center. And this is a unique building in that it was designed and built in coordination with the school district. It's a joint use facility with our high school. And many of the features that are listed here are run by the city. They're managed, they're programmed and maintained by the city. Some of them are also shared with the adjacent high school. So the pool, the tennis courts, and the gym are the facilities that we share mostly with the high school. And you'll see the status of that facility. Mid-March, everything closed. Right away, we went virtual, and we created a virtual recreation center and began offering group classes via Facebook for our pass holders. We now have over 600 followers, and so it's been very effective for us, something that we're likely to continue to do even after the facility opens. Our tennis courts and our aquatic program is part of this rec center complex. So we do not have any tennis courts in a traditional park setting. We do not have any other lap swim pools in other settings. So because our rec center is closed, we are also continuing to keep our tennis courts and our aquatics program closed for now. What we anticipate happening in June, well, we know it's going to happen next week. We're using our recreation center as our first COVID-19 testing facility. So since the building is large, has plenty of parking, and is not being used, it was a really good location for a testing site. So that's going to start next week, and we really aren't going to start thinking about reopening components of the rec center until the testing is complete at this location. We run a lot of programs, as Megan mentioned. So this is just a summary of some of the programs that we run, and you can see mid-March, everything closed. We've gone virtual with almost all of our programs as much as possible, and we'll continue to do that in the coming months. I think we'll have some updated information this week at the state level about day camp programs, but we've canceled you know, everything. And for our special event and rental space, one thing that I want to highlight is that our typical conference rooms at City Hall and other buildings that we have are no longer large enough to facilitate meetings and maintain social distancing. So we're actually holding all of our rental facility space to be used by our own staff for meetings, knowing that we're going to need that flexibility as we move forward. We know that folks are going to have some childcare needs this summer. We're not planning right now on having summer day camp programs. We typically do our recruitment process for staffing, our seasonal staffing in mid to late March, and we just felt like there was so much uncertainty. We didn't go through that process. We have an after-school program that we run right now. Those staff have not been furloughed yet because they're grant funded. So if we see an opportunity to open up some day camps in the summer, we know we'll be able to offer fewer of them because of the new ratio requirements. And the staff that we have right now on hand will likely be able to absorb any of the registration for summer programs. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our preschool, because that's the one area that we are certain we're reopening in a few weeks. And what we've decided to do is use that as sort of a test case for summer programs should we have the opportunity to open those back up. We know that we are going to have a ratio requirement of 10 students per one instructor for each classroom. So right now our preschool has 2 classrooms that can accommodate 24 students in each class. So we're basically now able to provide childcare for less than half of what we typically do. We issued a survey to our families, not really sure if folks were going to be interested in having their children come back to preschool. And 82% of them indicated that they have a need or an interest for full-time, 5 days a week childcare. We offered a lot of different options in that survey. We figured people are probably so desperate just to have a little bit of relief, they'll take what they can get. And that was the case, but there really was a strong need to have a more typical childcare environment. So what we are doing is we're developing our protocols now for how we're going to run that program. We're going to use the overflow space and our community center to support that program. And I've listed some of the protocols we know we're going to have to implement. We're still developing those, but we'll use this as a test case. It'll be a smaller group of students. We're going to use a lot of our staff that currently are, have a little bit of availability because our facilities are closed, and they'll help us meet our student-teacher ratio requirements for offering both the licensed preschool, and then any overflow will be for our older students who would typically qualify for our summer day camp programs. And we will run that as like a transition program into kindergarten. So I want to talk a little bit about park maintenance and what we're doing there, because in the beginning of the shelter-in-place order, we had all of our staff working in the field. We were cleaning and sanitizing everything. And then a few weeks in, we pulled back and we reduced our maintenance to just 2 days a week. We alternated work days with our staff and put them on administrative leave for the days they couldn't work. We closed the play equipment and restrooms, but we let our contractors continue to work. So one of our big contracts that we use this time of year are our goats, our West Sac goats. They're very popular. We use them for vegetation management. And we were very concerned that would create some problems with social distancing because we get large groups gathering to watch them. So we decided to keep that program and got a little creative with our signage and social media messaging. And we haven't had any problems, really. We've been very fortunate. Because of the weather and some of the late rains, we just have a lot of backlog with park maintenance and vegetation management. So now our staff are back working 5 days a week. We have our play areas and restrooms closed still. We've been able to stagger shifts to promote social distancing and have protocols in place to provide a safe environment for all of our staff. I just want to close with this slide as we look to reopening, and I know we don't have a lot of facilities reopening soon. I will say that a great thing that's happened as a result of this is that in this region we have weekly coordination meeting with Parks and Rec leaders, and this has proven to be very, very effective, and the group has worked to develop consistent messaging with our respective public health officers. So we've got a Yolo County public health officer and a public health order that is a little bit different than Sacramento's. And so we're working very hard to coordinate to make sure that we can get them as consistent as possible. I would say that as we all interpret the public health order a little bit differently, these meetings have been helpful to help us all get on the same page. In West Sac, the COVID-19 testing and tracing is the key to reopening any of our facilities, and we don't have a testing facility right now. Next week, that testing facility will open at our rec center. And once that gets going and we have higher levels of participation in testing, then we'll be able to consider reopening more of our facilities and our programs. With our summer programs, staffing resources, timing, and reduced revenues actually likely going to impact the way that we reopen those programs as much as the COVID-19 pandemic protocols. We are opening City Hall. I mean, City Hall's been open to a certain extent for permit applications and project reviews, but we're working to reopen and bring back more staff starting next week. We're going to continue to encourage teleworking as much as possible. And another great thing that's come out of this situation is the use of Zoom and Zoom type platforms. It's improved coordination in my department, greatly. As you know, in Parks and Recreation, you have people all over the place. They have different schedules, different facilities, and sometimes it's very hard to get them all together. We've been able to do that on a weekly basis, and we'll continue to do that because it's been very effective. And then on our facility and program closure period, obviously we have staff that doesn't have as much work to do right now because we have buildings that are closed and programs and offerings that have been closed as well. And what we're doing is using it as an opportunity for those staff to try on different hats, to work in other departments, maybe do some things that they typically don't have the time to do during a normal work environment. And we've been able to have our Parks and Rec staff, some of our rec leaders are now working in maintenance. Some of our rec leaders are working in our public information office, and they're just developing some great skills that they can come back and use in our department. So that concludes my presentation. We'll turn it over to Janine.
Okay, good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here today. For those not familiar with Santa Cruz, it is a city with a population of over 200,000 residents and is located 30 miles north of downtown Los Angeles. Next slide. Great, thank you. Here is a snapshot of recreation community service programs offered throughout the community. As a result of the stay-at-home order, each of these programs were immediately suspended and all spring programs were ultimately canceled. Our primetime preschool also went very virtual, and they were able to provide parents with education components to work with their kids at home. Recently, this last Friday, we had a drive-through graduation ceremony for our primetime preschool participants. The city has 2 community centers that serve all ages from toddlers to seniors. Both centers continue to remain closed at this time for recreational purposes. However, to accommodate the needs of a local stay there. Thank you. Thank you. However, to accommodate the needs of a local nonprofit, Bridge to Home, which is a homeless shelter provider, our Newhall Community Center is being utilized to assist them by helping to serve the community and meeting their social distancing requirements. Next slide. In addition to recreation and community services, there is an arts and events division within the department. This division oversees programs listed here, which include public art, providing arts education to youth and arts professionals, and the operating of the Main, which is a small theater venue. All in-person programs were suspended and special events canceled following the order. Next slide. The city of Santa Cruz maintains 34 parks, which includes 17 multi-purpose fields, 9 tennis courts, and 6 outdoor pickleball courts. The city also has nearly 11,000 acres of open space and over 60 miles of multi-use trails. Throughout this time of COVID-19, the city took into consideration the significant mental and physical health benefits nature provides to our community. Since the beginning of the pandemic, city sports fields, open space, trails, and paseos remain open to the public. The city has received many positive comments about the importance of trails and paseos and their impact on the quality of life. Residents were and continue to be encouraged to practice social distancing and to wear a mask when coming in contact with people from outside of their household. As of May 18th, City Hall, and the city has reopened City Hall, dog parks, tennis courts, including our outdoor pickleball courts, park restrooms, and the Santa Cruz Skate Park. As we move through the phases of reopening facilities, the city has looked into providing alternative programming opportunities. Next slide. To align with the CDC and public health requirements, the city will provide a variety of alternative program options to residents this summer. Typically, each summer, the city offers an 8-week camp program serving over 600 children per week. Because we're unable to accommodate this volume of children within the parameters of the CDC requirements, the city will be offering a child care program. This program will provide services to families with child care needs and will comply with CDC guidance for child care programs, as well as American Camp Association Field Guide. We're providing this service at 7 facilities throughout the city from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m., serving over 200 children per week. In addition, for the summer, the city has historically offered 300 classes through our contract class program. This summer, the program has been modified as many of the instructors will be offering their classes virtually using online platforms. We're also developing modifications for some classes to take place outdoor while allowing for social distancing, such as tennis would be one. Although we will not be moving forward with our traditional summer leagues, such as softball and football and flag football, our adult sports program will be offering virtual programming. We have started a virtual walking challenge and encouraging residents to get outdoors, as well as virtual disc golf tournament, which allows residents to play individual games and track their scores online. As an alternative to most of our programs we are offered during the summer, we are launching a dedicated website with videos, digital resources, and activities to meet the recreational and educational needs of the residents in the community. The website will feature potential activity residents can do at home, such as cooking, challenges, craft activities, training videos, and more. The trails continue to be highly utilized during this time. We have utilized social media and our Santa Cruz website to promote a variety of hiking trails throughout the city. We are very excited with the development of our Santa Cruz Valley Bike Park. During the last few months, this project has been on hold. However, we've regained momentum and the project is back on track, and we're finalizing design and preparing for construction. The park will be located at the Santa Cruz Sports Complex, where it will include a variety of skill development obstacles to serve a variety of ages and abilities. This will be a great new outdoor amenity for our community. Next slide. To engage the community in theater and special events, The Main, which is a small theater venue, is creating content for virtual events taking place Tuesday through Friday evening. Some of the events include our New Heights series, which is a virtual artist development series that offers guidance and support to musicians, filmmakers, and visual artists. Other series we have is the 10 by 10 variety series, which features 10 acts, including musicians, storytellers, comics, short films, and other interesting acts. With regards to public art, the inability to see exhibits in facilities, the city has created a virtual art exhibit on our santacruzarts.com site to share the shows that were on display or were scheduled to be displayed during the stay-at-home order. One of our exhibits is Art in Isolation, a show featuring artists from all over the world, which depicts images and experiences from the stay-at-home order. This exhibit takes guests out of their homes and allowing them to stroll through a virtual art gallery. We've strived to stay connected with our students through our school programs during this time. One of our school programs is Drug-Free Youth in Santa Cruz Valley. This program runs alongside our local K-12 schools. We've now transitioned this program virtually and have used social media and online platforms such as Zoom to stay connected with the students and continue our drug-free messaging. Lastly, volunteers play a significant role in our community to put on many of our programs and large events. To stay engaged with our volunteers, we continue to provide information on agencies and nonprofit organizations in need of help through our website. To show thanks to our high school program volunteers, staff mailed handwritten cards to over 180 seniors graduating to congratulate them on their accomplishments. Next slide. So with that, what's next? Because the situation remains fluid, we'll look to provide alternative programming as ways to engage residents as we move to reopening facilities. We know those reopening facilities are going to definitely take some time, so we're looking at how we can best operate within the parameters that are given to us. It has definitely been very challenging, while at the same time been an opportunity to be very creative. Throughout this time, our staff has utilized professional relationships with staff at other agencies, as well as professional organizations to identify best practices. Through these connections, along with the CDC, state, and county public health guidance, we continue to develop and modify action plans to open the remainder of our facilities, as well as provide in-person programming. We are truly looking forward to a time we can connect as a community to engage in our recreation, community, and services and arts and events activities. And that's what I have from the city of Santa Clarita. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. We are going to now open it up to our Q&A section. There are two ways to ask our question, but before we get to that, we have a poll. Katie, we're gonna do a poll. So please participate. You're gonna see a poll click in just a second. Here we go. So our first poll, is your agency planning to offer summer day camps / programs? And just to let you know some of the other membership services that the league is providing, we do have these roundtables for specific department heads in your cities. We were thinking if this is a big issue, we could have a special roundtable discussion about summer camps and the do's and don'ts and what you're thinking about doing, so you can all get information from each other. Any information that you do provide us, we will be sending out and posting so you can learn. Okay, Katie, let's close that poll. Wow, it's almost it's pretty evenly split. So we have 37% will be offering summer day camps, 34 say they won't, and 29 are still unsure about that. Thank you all for participating. Should we go to the second part of that, Tracy? Okay, our second part of that question is, if yes, so those who are, do you have the COVID-19 procedures and training in place?
Wow.
Wow. Again, thank you for taking this survey, and please let us know if this is one of these things that you want to hear about on a roundtable. So our final poll results are 67% do have those procedures in place and 33% don't. The next question for that is, again, if you are a yes, when will you start your program? June or July? Please vote. June is just around the corner. Okay, the results are, out of those who will be having a summer day camp, 69 will be in June and 31% will be in July. Last question about these summer programs. For those who are not sure that you're gonna have, that 29% of you who are not sure you're gonna have a summer program, do you have staffing ready to run your programs should you decide to offer it? So those who are not going to have a program, do you already have your staff? Please vote. Let's close. 68 do have staff, 69% do have staff. Wow. Thank you, Katie. Ladies, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's really interesting. I mean, we're one of the cities that's probably leaning towards not offering anything. And if we did offer something, it would likely be in July, because we just wouldn't have the ability to gear up to offer something in June, and maybe towards the later part of June at the earliest. But it does go to show just how much variation there is. And these weekly coordination meetings that I've been having with Parks and Rec representatives in the region have been so helpful so that we can understand the impact that our decisions are making on our neighbors. So if we're not offering these summer programs, we know Sacramento, Davis and Woodland, if they decide to offer them, they're going to get hit really hard because they're going to have a lot of our residents needing to use those programs. So we are trying to coordinate to make sure that we're not creating these impacts, but when we've surveyed folks, we've gotten mixed reviews on the surveys. A lot of families feel like they're not ready to send their kids back to summer camp yet. So yeah, kind of interesting information to have.
For me, I think that we're able to offer this summer because we already have the infrastructure in place. And as far as like meeting some of the requirements, it was kind of a shift. So I think that, again, too, we don't know exactly who's going to attend, but it will be almost our opportunity to see or test the waters, what it may look like in the fall and going forward. So I think this is our opportunity. It really is going to be learning on the fly, even though we have protocols in place and all those components. But I don't know how the community is going to respond. But I think that they're ready to see, and this is an opportunity for us to take that chance and try.
Yeah. So just to remind our audience, there are two ways to ask questions. One is to raise your hand, and I will call on you, and you will be able to verbally ask your question. Another way is to use our chat function and just type your question in. So as we wait for some of the verbal questions to come in, we do have some written ones. Our city's laying off Parks and Rec staff to balance their budget, Our city's laying off their Parks and Rec staff to balance their budgets, impacting the running of city parks.
We haven't, in Santa Clarita, we haven't laid off. We don't have any hours for our part-time staff due to programming, but we haven't laid off, which would consider laying off people. Mm-hmm. No, we just don't have any hours because of lack of programming because of what the situation is.
Okay.
The same in West Sacramento. We're not anticipating laying off anybody. We've furloughed a lot of our part-time seasonal staff right now. We are going through a budget exercise of looking at our O&M budgets and trying to reduce those, but that's not including any staffing positions.
Ladies, do you both have libraries in your cities, city-ran libraries?
We do in Santa Clarita.
And how is the COVID-19 impacting that? Is that under Parks and Rec?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
But I can give you some input on it. It's, okay. It's a very vital resource in the community. So with that, they just recently opened up to have people be able to drive up and pick up books and things just on curbside and do it that way. So it's been neat. That has had a significant impact. We've really seen parents and folks really come out to do that. We also recently had a meeting with our recreation staff and the library staff to talk about how people recreate this summer. Maybe that's not traditionally a recreational component, but it's a way that parents get exposure to different things and try new opportunities from an educational and enrichment opportunity. So we looked at combining efforts because of lack of facilities and unable to gather folks. Maybe we could do some things together over the summer.
Great. A big part of the information that you've talked about has to revolve around communication. Communication about your new programs and how you're moving forward. Communication about having stuff not reopened yet. How have both cities worked with their communications? How are you reaching out to your residents about programs that have been paused and that are continuing in a different way?
Well, we have a public information office that we work very closely with. In fact, as I mentioned in my presentation, some of our rec leaders are part of that team now and are actively engaged in developing and sharing that information. We also have a lot of direct access to our residents through our facilities and our programs. So we just use that listserv to distribute information. And we coordinate very closely with the school district and our chamber just to make sure that we've got a lot of other opportunities to share information and use those connections.
And like Tracy, we too use our public information officer, but as well as different social media platforms. And again, we have many of our folks that are registered through our programs. So we send email blasts and communicate that way with specific programs, very similar.
Perfect. Again, please feel free to raise your hand so you can chat directly with our speakers. A written question we have is, what challenge is everyone having with the maintenance issue? In Oakland, there are more people in parks than ever before, and keeping ahead of the trash, it's been after a 3-day weekend, has been very hard. Do you have any tips for Brian from Oakland?
I can just speak for parks is not in my area. However, we have definitely seen an influx, and it's been difficult for them, like you said, to keep up with the trash and everything. They've staggered. We haven't had any cuts, so they've staggered people as far as work. Really try to make an emphasis, because during this time, people are outside in parks. They're walking. They're out and visible. It has definitely been a challenge, but it's been modified schedules. They have definitely staggered how people work. They've had to monitor how people ride in vehicles, maybe one person per vehicle. That's been definitely a challenge. So I'm sure they're probably having some of the same challenges we are. But I said we're all in the same boat. I mean, that's pretty much what I have.
In West Sacramento, it might be a little bit different. When we scaled back our park maintenance, that's when we noticed a lot of litter. And a few weeks into having that reduced maintenance in parks, it's when our park superintendent said, you know, this is just not going to work. We have a lot of people who are super excited about reporting COVID-19 social distance violations. So we've used our code enforcement group at the city to start fielding those calls. And we set that up a few months ago now. And so they're the clearinghouse for anybody that calls to report violations of the public health order. And it's just like all the neighbors, you've never seen so many neighbors so focused on our parks and trails. So it's been nice that they let us know how people are using our facilities, but for the most part, they've been pretty respectful. We have what's called the Downtown Streets program, where we employ members of our homeless community to pick up trash and litter in certain areas, and they had to stop work for 2 months because of the COVID-19 protocols, and they just started back up. And we have a lot of trash, especially in our open space areas that they're collecting. But that's why we just couldn't sustain a reduced park maintenance staffing level for very long.
Great. This question is not from me, just to preface this, but is anyone going to reopen their indoor aquatics facilities or outdoor aquatics facilities?
We are not going to open our aquatics at this time. We're waiting for county guidance and guidelines on those kinds. There's a lot of guidelines, but we're really waiting to see how the county operates before we open our pools. I don't have indoor, they're all outside. Outdoor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in West Sacramento, our aquatic facility is part of the recreation center. So while the recreation center is closed, our aquatic facilities will also be closed. And we're coordinating with the other jurisdictions in our county to make sure that we have a consistent approach to how we reopen our pools.
Great. And on your screen right now, there are the 2 ways to ask questions. Thank you so much, Teresa. Children's playground equipment. You know, the summer is coming. It is hot. These kids are tired of being indoors. How are you handling children's playground equipment?
At this time in Santa Cruz, they're still closed. I would hope to see down the near future they'll be open, but they're not open yet. As far as
do
doing
you have signs that say this is closed?
They've been taped off. Some of it disappeared, but they're putting it back on. But yeah.
Yeah, ours are closed. We put caution tape around them, and we have signage. The caution tape needs to be replaced every week. Mm-hmm. And that's been a little bit of a rub in the region, because we do have jurisdictions in the region that have chosen to open up their playgrounds. And so you know that it's tough, because it puts a lot of pressure on staff and leadership when you don't have that consistency. But ours are closed, and they track with our restrooms, and they will probably be one of the last amenities to reopen.
How many parks do both cities have?
Santa Cruz has 34 parks.
And West Sacramento has?
37.
So you constantly have maintenance workers visit every park once a week to re-tape them off. That's a lot of time.
We don't have play equipment in every park or every facility. So I have to go back to my slide. I think we have either 13 or 18 play structures. And so those are being monitored every week.
That's the same for Santa Clarita. We don't have structures in every single park, so.
We have a question related to dog parks. We have a dog park with regular times that's quite crowded. Does either city have the capability or, I'm sorry, does either city have the capacity or time limits while using their dog parks?
No, we don't in Santa Clarita, no.
We don't in West Sacramento. We have signs up, and for the most part, people have generally been following the rules. And it just hasn't been enough of a problem to elevate it to the point where we would need to control the use more than it is right now.
Here's a question. Do either of your cities plan or have even been talking about eliminating the Parks and Rec department and move some of your offerings to the libraries?
No, not at all. Not in Santa Clarita, no.
I hope not.
No.
I haven't heard anything. I actually, from our leadership, what we've heard as we start having these budget discussions is that there is value and need for these services. So there's a real interest in having us, think outside the box to try to find ways to do business differently and cost effectively. But I will say that West Sacramento is a little bit of a unique city in that we don't rely on some of the traditional revenue streams that other cities rely on. We don't have a lot of TOT revenues that come into the city yet. We have a lot of industrial uses that have continued to remain open. And we don't rely on retail sales as much as other cities do. We do rely heavily on property taxes. So we're watching very carefully what happens in the next wave, hoping that people do return to work and we can get back to business almost as usual quickly.
We have a lot of written questions coming in, no hands yet. Apparently this is a shy crowd. Has your council adjusted to the cost recovery they are expecting you to obtain under the new circumstances? A lot of your services, there is a small fee.
So at this time, we're reviewing budget and things. We haven't made any adjustments at this point in time. So we're getting through the part of this end of this fiscal year, and then we'll reevaluate at the next, but no.
In West Sacramento, we were actually in the process of launching a major fee update process, looking at all of our fees across departments. So that's something that we'll be working on. I mean, obviously with the loss of special events and rental program, that's a huge revenue hit to our department and to the city. A lot of those funds that come in actually go to the general fund. They don't come back into the department. And then with our recreation center being closed, we have hundreds of pass holders that aren't paying anything right now. And we expect that when we do reopen, not everybody is going to want to come back. Mm-hmm. And so we'll have to kind of find that sweet spot of being able to adjust our rates enough so that we're not, kind of deepening the financial hole that we're in, but also making the facilities or events accessible to our community. We don't want to price ourselves out of the market.
Okay, we actually do have a verbal question from Mario. Let me unmute you. Mario?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, what city are you with?
Thank you, this is Mario with City of Sacramento. I actually was trying to respond and I couldn't find the raised hand thing to the question about pools. I actually have an item going to my city council tonight asking for the ability to recruit and fill our aquatics, some of our aquatics positions so that we can be at the ready if we are allowed to open up pools with modified programming. That was the early indication that we had gotten. CDC has published some guidelines and we would like to be prepared to be able to do that. So we are going to be doing that. I hope we're not an outlier in this regard, and I would like to hear from other agencies if they're also anticipating being able to do some kind of modified programming like lap swim or parent and child, ability to reserve a time to come in and utilize the pools. We don't anticipate having a full-blown program, obviously, but that's the case. And we're also one of the agencies planning on doing some sort of summer daycare / summer camp programming, and I'm asking for some resources to do that as well.
We in Santa Clarita, we do have a plan in place as far as exactly what Mario said about scheduling time for lap swimmers, scheduling time for some of the pool rentals. We have that in place. We're just looking at what the county's doing before we pull the trigger on that. But we do have plans in place to be able to do that.
Yes, Mario, there are several chats in our group chat that are talking about how they may allow, cities are looking at allowing swim clubs to open up when we reach level 3 or the 3rd phase. They're waiting on guidelines from the county. But one question is, has anyone thought about addressing splash pads, which, as we know, in these 2 hot cities, it's nice to stay cool, and a splash pad is not a pool.
Yeah, we don't have splash pads in Santa Clarita at all.
Oh, not gonna open then.
We have one in West Sacramento, and we will not open it until we open our pools, because our splash pad is designed to have interactive features that are touch based, and it's just too hard to monitor that. So we're not planning to reopen it anytime soon.
Skate parks, how are you monitoring the use of skate parks?
Our skate park is, you are on your own, you skate. So it was one of the last things we closed, and we had a soft opening, came open. It's going pretty good. We have any complaints. There are some that wear masks, some that don't. But as far as what happens out there, kids just skate around and people come. It's not probably as busy as it has been maybe this past weekend, but as far as monitoring it, we're not saying don't go. It is what it is at this point in time.
You don't have any signs that say at your own risk?
Oh yeah, we have that at our own risk, but we have the mask signs, and we do have the social distancing and wearing your mask, absolutely. We have the definite COVID-19 signs up there, but as someone out there policing it, no. If someone's out there policing it, no.
Talking about summer camps, if they do start up again, do you think you're going to have a protocol for campers to wear masks?
It's interesting that prior to this webinar, I was just in the office with the assistant city manager. We were talking about that. We're going to make some decisions tomorrow. Because basically, from what I understand from CDC, they're asking for kids to wear a mask over a certain age and also for staff. So we're going to be discussing that tomorrow. We haven't made totally that decision, but that is the recommendation.
How do you anticipate youth sports programs returning? Are you planning a registration period in advance for the fall to start?
At this time, we're looking at it. It's like, wow. We have plans in place, but we'll have to wait and see. Because everything's cool. It's very hard to be able to just jump in and go, yes, we're going to start doing that. I really have to wait and see. We do have some plans, though, but nothing to divulge at this time.
Mm-hmm. And we're kind of the same place in West Sacramento. We're hoping that we might be able to introduce something in the fall, but it really depends on what happens.
You both talked about virtual classes. Are you charging for the virtual classes, and how's your participation been?
In Santa Clarita, we just started. And as far as the main in our theater, we have had our 10 by 10 little theater group, our acting area. We've had a very large participation on many social media platforms at that event, and that is free. But as far as our other classes, we're just starting that up in the next few weeks. So we will be charging a nominal fee to be able to participate. We're working closely with our contract instructors. This is our very first time doing it, so we'll see how it goes.
We've actually been offering a variety of virtual classes, all completely free. So The ones that we use for our rec center, our fitness classes, we pay our contractor instructors to prepare and film the classes, and they're made available to our rec center pass holders for free. So right now with our rec center, we're not charging anybody their monthly dues because the facility's closed. So they get access to all of those classes for free. We have, our preschool, same thing. Preschool's not inexpensive at our licensed facility, and we're basically preparing daily courses for families and their children to participate in for free. And then offering virtual classes for our adaptive recreation, our after school programs, our senior programs, and everything's been free so far. We are getting ready to develop some virtual summer camp programs, an actors camp, and maybe some sort of an athletic program for youth where you'd have a small fee to participate in the program.
How's your participation been? Are you keeping track of that?
Well, for our rec center, like we have over 600 people following the Facebook site set up to offer our virtual classes, which is very high. That's probably more participation than we might have in-person classes, just because now people can access them anytime and they can do classes over and over again. So it's something that we will continue. And as I mentioned, we're going to start making a few of those classes available to everybody in the community as a way to promote the rec center, market it so that when it does reopen, we'll have a lot of people who've been able to meet instructors online and get a sense of the class offerings. And hopefully that would encourage them to come back or to join if they haven't been members before.
Perfect. Two more quick questions before we do final thoughts. You talked a lot about parks and taping off the equipment, but what about picnic benches and drinking fountains? Are you cleaning those? Are they taped off?
We have not taped them off. And as far as cleaning, as far as right now, they may be clean, but we're not encouraging anyone to drink out of the fountains as well. So,
have you had any problems with overuse of those picnic benches in Santa Clarita?
I would say this weekend, I'm sure there are people sitting out there. So I would say as the weather got better, people would sit out there, but they were never taped off. Like, don't use them all. So
we turned our drinking fountains off so they couldn't be used. And our picnic areas, we just had signs stuff that said, members of the same household only use the picnic areas. And this weekend it was actually very warm. And so we didn't have as many people out in some of our picnic areas as we thought we would have, but that's been difficult to enforce. It's really hard to know if folks are part of the same household. At a certain point, you just gotta, people have to be responsible for their own actions.
Thank you all for the questions about pools that are coming in. Have you had any discussions about social distancing when it comes to lifeguard rescues? Or is that one of the many questions you will have when pools start reopening?
Wow, that is a very interesting, amongst the staff we've talked about it, but I think as we get closer to open those pools, I don't know what that's going to be, but I know that we've talked about what does that look like, because we have to save someone, you have to touch them and to pull them in. So that will be a discussion we will have as soon as we get down to that point. Wow. Interesting.
I think it's going to be really interesting moving forward how we develop waivers for our programs and facility use, because we're going to have to incorporate some language that protects us from those types of situations as much as possible. So we'll have to look to Mario because he's going to council tonight. He moves forward, maybe he can provide some guidance to us.
Yeah. I want to thank everyone for participating in this webinar. We've hit the hour mark. Thank you all, and thank you to our speakers. Before we end, I want to turn it over to the speakers one last time. You've given us such great information. Is there anything that you want to tell the audience? One last tip, one last thought?
I think for me is that it was interesting to hear some of the questions. I do feel that we're all experiencing that fluidity of what's going on as far as regulations. I think that it's really going to be challenging how we re-engage our community. So we look at some of their fears, some of the things that how we have to do things differently. And I don't know what the new normal will be, but I definitely think there's many opportunities to be creative and also still provide quality programming for our community.
I would just like to say thank you for everyone who registered and participated in this. It's been great coordinating with other agencies, and we're all in this together. So I imagine that moving forward, we're not going to be able to offer everything that we've offered in the past, but if we're working together, hopefully we can still offer our communities a high level of recreation amenities and programming, but we just have to coordinate those a little bit differently now. And if you have any great information that you're willing to share with others, I really hope that this could be a forum for us to do that, and maybe the league could kind of distribute information if it's shared with them. So if you have protocols, any procedures that you feel are, worthy of sharing, please do so. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. I just want to address a few questions. Tomorrow we are going to have an HR discussion about new workplace protocols that are going to be established. You can still sign up for that at cacities.org/events. Our HR directors will talk about liability, which is some of the questions that I've seen at the very end. You can also find not only this webinar, but our past webinars, recordings and slides at cacities.org/coronavirus. And I want to thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for your questions and responses about the roundtables. It looks like the membership wants 2 roundtables, one about summer camps and one about reopened aquatic centers. So please look forward to that, and we will send you out that information to those who have registered. Thank you so much for participating, and please be safe out there. Thank you again, everyone, and thank you to our great speakers. Have a great day.